Jody Wood.
Thank you, Jody. And a second it, please.
Second, Christopher Small, Florida State.
Thank you. And who is that again?
Christopher Small, Florida State University.
Christopher. Thank you very much, Christopher. And is there any discussion from anyone about the minutes? Okay, so we are looking for a vote. All in favor of the January 27, 23 minutes, please put your electronic hand in the air or eye or anything else. Yeah, there you go. Look at all those happy hands. We're still motioning.
Some people
Okay.
put it into the chat as well.
Yes, thank you. And we see hands waving in the air because we're going through our ribbon. It does look to me like we have passed at least a majority. Do you agree with that, Monica?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to move to the next slide. HQ updates, Monica.
Yes. As Carol said, everyone's very busy. And so I just wanted to give you an update on a few things that we've been working on. Oh, and just a reminder, we are recording this. And so if you want to leave your cameras on or off, totally up to you. But we put the recordings on the Plenum page for folks who aren't able to make it today. So we have a new membership vote. Eastern Michigan University has been a proud participant in UCEA for several years now and is moving to wants to move to a associate member. Ruth will take these links and put them into the chat box for you. It was also in the message that we sent out earlier. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that ballot, please do that during this meeting. We'll also leave it open for a few days afterwards as well. But we're excited to have EMU, which is right down the street from MSU, joining our community. I'm just gonna have to hearing feedback. Is the hearing okay? Yes, I think we're good, right?
They did it, yeah.
All
We're
right,
good.
thank you.
Thanks. We're all muted.
Yeah, so if you can mute yourselves so that there isn't that kind of funny feedback. So a couple of updates on our website redesign. So I mentioned to you back in January that we're putting, we're, going with a completely new website. And we had hoped to have that out before or launched before convention proposals were due and reviews are due. That's not going to happen. So we're keeping the current website alive through the convention review process. And we're hoping to launch this sometime in June, like a soft launch in June. I wanted to show you this very complicated image here because we had approximately 600 separate independent pages in our current website. And part of that's because of the infrastructure that was created, over 10 years ago. The web page design world has changed drastically since then. And so it'll be a different infrastructure, but part of what we've had to do, which has taken us so long, is we've actually had to go through sort of page by page to see what information on those pages are things that we want to transfer to our new website. What do we want to archive? And as cumbersome as that process has been, it's been really helpful for us to think about creating a brand new infrastructure to make the website more user friendly than the current one is. So that's just taken us a whole lot longer. There are two things we're sort of asking you to help. And again, Ruth will put these links into the chat. As part of this process, we want to make sure that we have any of your website information, Twitter handles, anything that you want to share with us. That's not a link, Ruth. So you may have to go to the actual document. Sorry. So we're asking all the PSRs to do that for their institutions. So that's one way to help. And if we can get that done before the the June date, that would be terrific, because then we can make sure that the new website has all the most updated information. The second thing is that for any nerds that might exist out there, we are going to soft launch this. And so before we actually do the launch, we're looking for people who might want to help us just, bounce around, click things in the new website, give us feedback on design issues, accessibility issues, all of that. So if you are interested in helping us out with the soft launch of this, thank you, Ruth. Please put your name in the chat, or we'll ask again in a follow-up email to everybody. But again, we're looking at sometime in mid-June. And so if you think you might have time to spend half an hour bouncing around the new website and getting a first look at it, we will be looking for you all for some help with that. And we also said we would come back to you in January. We had you do a poll of sort of policy issues that you want us to be looking at for the next year. I was really bummed that only 12% of people thought the Higher Education Act was exciting. But that's all right. So we put that together from the poll. I think we kind of pivoted a little bit this spring because of the events on campus here in February. The policy team kind of began looking at issues of university and school safety. So we hope to have something out on that relatively soon, but it kind of, put a pause on our developing an agenda for next year, but we will come back to this in the summer and hopefully have something to share with you when we meet again in September. At the last meeting, I also talked to you about a online equity workbook that's focused on PSEL 3, which is the culturally responsive leadership standard. As part of the National Policy Board, we've been working on this for about a year, and that has had a soft launch, and we're getting feedback from principals and superintendents sort of across the country. In that process, in that conversation, we also realized this could be a really good pedagogical tool. Because it's a web-based designed thinking approach and takes participants through a series of steps, asks them a series of questions. It's really a fascinating tool. And so I'm sharing the website with you again, and sort of thinking, as you think about courses for the fall, whether or not you might be interested in piloting or using this as a pedagogical tool or an assessment tool with your students. So please take a look at that website, poke around in it. And if you think you would be interested, let me know, because we'd like to have a small group of faculty sort of implementing it and then giving us feedback on it, but also working to help each other through any issues that may arise in your coursework as you have your students go through this. If you do get a chance to go there, it's an amazing tool. It's been about 18 months in the making, and I think it's in a place where it could be really helpful to practitioners and faculty alike. Just another awards update. I know we've already sent out several Excellence in Educational Leadership Awards out to PSRs who have submitted their names, but you have until this weekend to submit them. I think you do that through the website. Actually, Ruth, I don't have that link, but if you can find the link for the EEL, PSRs nominate one person from their, advisory board or adjunct faculty who are making contributions to the preparation of leaders in your program. So if you have not nominated someone yet, please do that. Our Excellence in Educational Leadership Program, Exemplary Educational Leadership Program, that letter of intent, if you want to submit your program for that award, is May 1st. Then you've got all summer to put your materials together. And then I think I mentioned this last year, we've moved the award nomination deadline to August because it used to be in May and we weren't getting a lot of people nominating. And so we thought that timeline might just be too stressful for people, given all the things that are happening at the end of the semester. So we pushed that back to August 25th with the hope that, again, you'll have the summertime to reach out to people and say, hey, you should nominate so-and-so, or I want to nominate you. Let's get your materials together. If you have any questions about that, the web page is up to date. That web page is up to date with all the new, with all the descriptions of all the awards and things. So just take a look at that. We would love to have many people nominated for all of our awards. And if you follow us on social media, you'll be seeing all that information coming out in the next couple of weeks as well, because, you know, you can do it in the summertime. Just a reminder about 2023 convention in the theme. We didn't have the theme at our January meeting, but we have it now. So it's really exciting. Minneapolis is going to be a fabulous place. They assure us that Minneapolis in November is very nice. So, you know, dress warmly and hope for the best. And there's, for those of you who might not know, ASH is having their conference almost at the same exact time as UCEA is this year. So we've been having conversations with them about potential crossover registration, some joint event. So if you do ASH and UCEA, usually don't despair. We're trying to figure that out and ways to make it sort of, you know, user friendly for people to go back and forth if they exist in sort of both worlds. All right, Ruth is just putting links up. Just another few opportunities that are available for you all and that, you know, we'd like for you to share with your faculty. We will be looking for new Jackson Scholar mentors for the next cohort, which is 23-25. You may have seen already that we are looking for 4 associate director positions, policy and advocacy, international initiatives, graduate student development, and faculty student development. So if you know anyone who might be interested, please share this information with them as well. I think it's just an exciting time to join the leadership of UCEA, and so it's a great opportunity to do service for us. And then I did mention last time the review, and a few of you did reach out to me on that. But we're still looking for a few more people to join the editorial board of the UCEA review and help us get, let me try and think. I don't think that was right, Melissa. If you want to check it again, I'm pretty sure reviews are due by June 2nd, I believe, but not proposals.
I have it open right now. That's why I double checked, because it says proposals. I literally just copied and pasted what was in there, but I could I mean, I don't know if it was just because
Yeah,
I know I shared the conference proposal.
I mean, I'll double check
call.
that, but the proposals are definitely due on May 12th, and then the reviews, I think, are due in June. So I will have Carl double check that. And then
Okay.
if anything changes, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Some graduate student opportunities. People have been asking about the Jackson Scholars nominations. So the link to nominate a Jackson Scholar is actually through the website. You have to go into the member portal. And so the link is there. We usually have PSRs submit their nominations because you're best able to make sure that scholars are fully funded. We've had a bit of an issue with some Jackson Scholars not being fully funded. And so we want to make sure that PSRs can make that commitment to students before they submit the nomination. Those are due May 15th. And then the postdoctoral research fellow, we've begun reviewing applications for that. But again, if you know of a recent grad who may have thought that they missed the deadline, who might still be interested, please have them reach out to me. And I can send the information to them about how to do that. The graduate student seminar is also going to be looking for student volunteers. So just, you know, keep your graduate students in the loop around some of this information. There it is. And then sort of last but not least, we're having our second presidential lecture series. Last year we started that with David having the first presidential lecture series in the spring. And one of the reasons we wanted to do that is to give sort of presidents an additional opportunity to talk about an issue that's important to them. They do all the sort of, they lead the EC for a year, and then they have their presidential speech in November. But we thought it would be nice for them to also have another opportunity to sort of inform the field, should they want to. Last year, David did it on sort of academic freedom, and he had a couple of deans on his panel. This year, Carol's been working with the list of panelists that you see here, all of whom except one have already confirmed, looking at issues of LGBTQIA plus solidarity. I think this is a really critical issue right now. And so we will be sending this information via email to all of our membership. So keep an eye out for it. But the registration webinar, but the registration link is here. And I think Ruth is going to put it into the chat for us as well. So you can share that with your colleagues. We are asking everyone to register in advance. Because the nature of this conversation, we want to make sure that it's a safe space for our panelists. But I think it's going to be an amazing opportunity to hear from people who both do research in this area, but also live it every day. So we're really looking forward to it. So please join us on that day. Anything else? Oh. Thank you, Melissa. She just answered her own question. So they are due on May 12th. Excellent. Thank you. So I'm not sure if there are any questions or on sort of this big picture update of what we've been working on the past couple of months. Awesome. I wanted to provide some financial updates. Because part of our April meeting is to talk about those things. I think we are only down to a handful of member institutions who are still working on paying their dues for last year. The 23-24 dues will be going out starting today and next week, so keep an eye out for that. And I think one of the things that we're finding is that because of the turnover in PSRs, we often don't have someone directly to contact. And so I think we're asking everyone to add a contact for either an admin or someone in your billing that handles the invoices and things in your department. We're asking you to add that information because in that way we can, also reach out to them and start developing relationships with them so that when these dues come up every year, they don't get lost when PSRs change or get put on someone's desk who has no idea what this is, right? And so we think it'll be easier for you as well as for us to, help. All right, hold on. There are a couple of questions here. So in the form, I think when you, Ruth, where do you ask them to update their billing information? It's in the invoice itself, right? That's going out.
It's on that Google Doc form. It's right under you, after they put Plenum representative, it will say billing contact info.
All right, so is
Are you talking about the thing that says fillable.jivrus?
Yeah.
It says member institutions website info. Okay, that link is all the way. I'll copy
all the
that
way at the
and paste
top
that
again?
Yeah,
So,
I can
if
get
you
it
wanna-
again.
If you want to add that link in again.
Yeah.
So that
I'll-
link where it's asking you to update the member info, at the bottom of that, it's that you'll find a spot where it says to add whatever billing address or information you have. And Christopher, the link for the Jackson Scholars is on the Jackson Scholar page. And so if you go there, there'll be a link to nominate, and that link will take you to the login website and where you submit the stuff for the Jackson Scholars. I know it's a bit of a process, but
I was thinking for them to submit to be a mentor. So I know the
that
nomination.
link.
but if
Oh,
they-
I
if
see.
they want to,
Mentors.
if I have a faculty member that wants to be a mentor of a scholar, how do they submit their information?
Yeah, that'll be a separate link and a separate process. And we're going to be putting that out more broadly through social media.
Gotcha.
But thanks for asking. Okay, so great. The other thing that we've gotten, we're in the process of doing is hiring a director of finance. Mostly because, as our organization continues to become more complex, the financial needs and maintaining the financial health of the organization is just becoming more important. And so we are in the process of hiring a director of finance to work with us here in HQ, who will then help us, sort of continue to build our sort of accounting and financial infrastructure. I think I mentioned before that in previous meetings that we've had to rebuild that. And so I think one of the outcomes of doing that is to create this new position at HQ that will help with grant management, internal accounting, auditing, and all of that. I think the other thing that we continue to do is to consolidate our accounts. And so I think I've mentioned before that we had lots of different bank accounts, for some obvious reasons. And so we continue to consolidate them to make it, again, easier to track and follow our money. And then I guess part of what this whole conversation is to continue to focus on transparency and making sure that you understand everything that we're doing here at HQ. I think for some PSRs who might be new, one of the things that we began doing about 2 years ago was actually redoing our entire budgeting model and creating something that was built on how our money was used before. And so 2 years ago, we kind of tracked our budget in real time. And then from that, have been able to create new budgets that are kind of more in line with our actual revenue and expenses, and that we can, again, sort of track our money more easily than we had in the past. And so last year, you'll see that first column is what we proposed as our budget for 22-23. What we actually have spent and taken, in revenue and expenses is that second one. And so you'll see that based on sort of the study that we did of our accounting in 2021, we came pretty close to having a budget that was just, almost completely aligned to our actuals. So we're still in the process of cleaning that up a little bit. But I'm happy to say that we were actually well within our budget for last year. And that's a big testament to both our accounting and Ruth, who's here somewhere, helping us figure this out. And this is one of the things that we would want the director of finance to obviously be in charge of as well. So where we thought we would be sort of under or over budget or short in our budget shortfall last year, we actually ended up being almost right on the money. I think the row that's highlighted in green is the funding that we get from MSU. So we do include that in our revenue since they provide quite a bit of support for us. And then our current investments right now are 3.7 million. We have many other folks have of having taken a little some hits in the past couple of years, but overall we continue to grow our investments. So we have well enough money in our reserve to sort of have those 2 years of budgeting cycles that organizations usually want to have. So one of the things that we began to develop this spring is also this idea of an operating budget, like how much it costs to run both headquarters and to do the infrastructure and running of UCEA. We started looking at that this spring as a way to really figure out, again, how much does it cost to run this organization? And one thing that you'll see from last year is where we had a very, where our budget was off was in that second line under program and sales, where we thought we were going to have 375 and we actually ended up having 550. The other place where our budget was off was in travel and conference, where we thought it would be 93 and then ended up being 342. So obviously we're like, well, what happened there? And what's happened in the past is that convention is sort of lopped into our overall budget. We don't have a separate convention budget. And because obviously convention in the past couple of years has been virtual and hybrid, we weren't really seeing that emerge until this past year when we actually went full back face to face. And that's when we saw like we had this big almost bubble in both our revenue and our expenses that came from budget. So in what we decided to do, again, is sort of separate out what we're calling now an operating budget, which is how much it costs to run the organization, with a convention budget. And we've always had a convention budget sort of humming in the background, but like I said, it was sort of looped into our general budget. And so it was hard to see both how much money, how much revenue we get and how many expenses we get from budget. So by pulling that out, our operating budget looks smaller. So we're under $1 million, both in terms of revenue and expenses, but it's actually a more accurate accounting of the money that we both take in as an organization and the expenses that we have. So the program and sales now only exclusively is membership fees and any other kind of sponsorship that may come from anything that we do. And so again, that's why our budget's a little smaller. And I think it's really important then to also, once we pulled the convention budget out from our regular budget, what you can see is the amount of money that UCEA subsidizes convention for. And, you know, convention is a service that we provide to the field. And I think in the, you know, as things have become more expensive in the past couple of years, and as we've wanted to create a better service, you can see that our expenses are much higher than our revenue. That's always been the case for convention, as long as I've been a member of the executive committee and leadership of UCEA. But now that we pull the convention budget out from our operating budget, you can really see how much we subsidize convention every year. We're hoping this year to have more people come to convention, which is why we're predicting more income from that. And by the same token, maybe having, you know, trying to think about ways in which we can lower some of the expenses. But that's the reason we wanted to do that, to show you all that. So basically, here's our budget for the past couple of years, what we approved last year, what was our actual for this year, and then what we're proposing for next year. Any questions about that? I see things lighting up. And then, okay, it's all. But any sort of questions about our thinking behind that, or, you know, I hope it kind of makes sense. I don't see the chat lighting up, so that's a good thing. We're going to follow up with a vote on this, just to make sure that, you know, if there are any questions that you might have between now and when we follow up with this, just reach out to us about that. Again, like our goal in talking about the budget in this much detail is to make sure that there's this transparent process around our financial systems. And so you can also see what changes we might make as we learn more about how UCEA runs as a financial entity. A lot of times we just focus on sort of the service elements of it. And now we're really trying to, again, continue to professionalize and our accounting and financial infrastructure to make sure we can stay healthy for years to come. So we'll follow up with that as well. There you go. That's all I got. Carol, are you good?
I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. So, you know, we have some newer PSRs and we have some who have been with us for quite a long time. So I thought I'd just start by setting some of the groundwork just to make sure that we're all on the same page, so to speak. Today, we're going to be talking somewhat about our organization's equity self-study, as well as a UCEA policy manual, which are our organizational bylaws, and the executive committee's own highlights that emerge from our work in policy teams. So another thing about our meeting is that we're going to do some more work on the UCEA vision statement. We want to continue to report on the UCEA's equity self-study work, of which you have been important and will continue to be, and you're integral in your own governance capacity as PSRs. So in addition to our updates as the EC and headquarters, we will once again extend this meeting with a relevant and timely PSR activity that we're going to get to shortly, so that we can hear from you on what is essentially the executive committee's revision of the UCEA vision statement, which we see as a draft being presented to you for your reflection and input. So the broader storyline we want to convey is that our starting point is once again the big picture of the UCEA equity self-study work that has served as our anchor for several years now as the EC and Plenum. And you likely remember what we're going to do is go to a diagram shortly, and we'll talk about that when we get to the diagram. But these are the essential points that I've just covered, and we're engaged in cycles of inquiry that extend into the future. And we hope that you will be part of all of that. The next slide. And Monica, you're going to speak to the staircase timeline.
Yes. And so one of the things that we want to keep reminding people is, just like Carol said, when we have new PSRs, and then we have PSRs who've been away who are coming back. And so we want to make sure that everyone's got the same understanding of the work that we've been doing. And I think one of the ways to do that is to look at this process over time. And a reminder to some PSRs who may not have been here back in 2021, when we started having this conversation around the need for an equity self-study, that emerged from several things that were happening sort of at the same time, beginning back in 2019, 2020, when I came on as executive director. It just seemed the right time to be looking again at our bylaws, looking again at issues that have been emerging or were emerging in UCEA. And so I think for the past 2 years, we've done the things in the gray. So yay, we've done quite a bit of work, both in terms of the foundations of the equity self-study, but then also the data collection and the survey development, and the first round of data collection. So in 2023, we've been continuing to look at the data around the issues of governance and culture and climate and leadership preparation. So we've done several rounds of data analysis on that. And as a result, we've also begun looking at sort of the bylaw changes that we want to then be able to share with you come the fall. After this 2023, we'll continue to work on that because, as you'll see in the next slide, there are some areas within the original equity self-study that we have not yet explored. And even within the areas that we have explored, we've realized that there are things that we need to go a little deeper into. But we're on track to start doing some strategic planning this summer and to have some bylaws for you to take a look at come the fall.
Monica was just referencing the priority areas for equity self-study as part of that timeline. Some of you will remember this diagram from past meetings because we like to present it over and over again in order to emphasize that there are 6 areas of work that have been laid out, and there are 3 buckets in particular that we decide to spend time on. And you can see those areas here in the blue: governance, leadership preparation and development, and culture and climate. The work of late of the executive committee has focused on or emphasized governance with some overlaps in the area of culture and climate. As you know, this work takes into account the ongoing equity self-study, but also equity informed considerations, right, in order to re-envision the organization as a whole and in depth in particular areas. We, the EC, took a deep dive into the governance area and bucket, and that has been reflected in our 4 policy bylaws teams as well. So Monica, if you want to just move to the teams. Thank you. So the EC split ourselves into teams. We have the plenum or PSRs, and awards, sabbatical review, and clinical faculty as those areas. And over the months, these teams have generated and reported to the EC what we're going to refer to as high-level musings, that is musings, yes, and proposed changes to the bylaws, that is the policy manual. So we've been assigned sections of the manual, and we have really tackled those and go at it. And do consider the manual hasn't been updated in years. Seems like since 2017 might be that year. If you want to go to the next slide.
I'm not, Carol, I'm sorry. Did we want any one member from these groups to just say something quickly about what they've been working on, or are we just good going forward?
Yeah, so we could invite EC members. Would anyone from the PSR team, which is the first bullet there, like to just sort of on the spot provide a highlight? You know, noticing or noting that we received a lot of feedback from the plenum on the plenum, the PSR role, and questions around that. And also some really, you know, important issues were raised. Would anyone like to provide a highlight?
Actually, Carol, I think you just did it. So maybe if you could just
Okay.
talk a little bit more about the other three, just so that people know what the groups have been doing. So yeah, so the first group was looking at sort of that PSR section broadly, and what you just said, sort of how PSRs are designated, what are some of the confusions or places in the manual where the PSR role needs to be clarified. I
Mhm.
know you were working on the awards group, so you can talk a little bit about what your group has done.
Yeah, exactly. So for the awards team of the executive committee, so we really went at it, right? We went through the entire awards section and we rewrote it. We brought in the new award, such as the Linda Tillman Award. Okay, so we brought that in into the draft, and we thought long and hard about, you know, how can and how might awards actually come about? What are those generating bodies? What are those bodies that will review and process the awards? And so we've rethought the entire process and have proposed that. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think the team looking at the sabbatical review, we have in our bylaws that programs get reviewed every 7 years by UCEA. That's something that we haven't done in a while, and there's you know, trying to rethink what the purpose of that is and whether or not that should be a part of our bylaws. So that's what the sabbatical review team has been doing. And I think to your point, Carol, about some of these data, some of these areas are specifically because they emerged in the equity self-study, and some of it was just sort of equity oriented work. And so the issues of the roles of clinical faculty is not something that we actually have much of in our bylaws, period. And so that group is going to be reaching out and working with a team of clinical faculties to really have a conversation around what are ways in which UCEA can be more supportive of them in those roles, and make sure that we're inclusive of those roles as well. So that's what the clinical faculty group is doing. And I think as a result, you know, hopefully by the fall, we will have some draft language and recommendations for your feedback when it comes to revising the bylaws.
For the equity self-study next steps, the EC will be continuing its work, such as by developing a strategic plan. We're going to be working on that over the summer. Continue short-term actions and plan for long-term actions and efforts. And also outreach for your support as PSRs. Our timeline involves an additional data report in September. Changes to the bylaws, and we have the fall in mind for that. And we have 2 more plenum meetings, right? September and November. So we're very intentional about rolling out proposed suggestions and changes and getting well, eventually to the point of approval. Continue the ESS work in the fall and beyond the fall. And then the ESS part 2, which is the leadership prep part, that part of the survey, that survey is still open. So we would appreciate hearing from more of you, and that would really help with this whole, work that is ahead that we're referring to. Monica, do you want to elaborate on, it's still open for responses or anything else here? And you're on mute right now.
Yes, thank you. It
Mhm.
just makes me laugh how we've been Zooming for years and years, and the mute button is still the biggest challenge. And so, yeah, so one of the things that we recognized when we did the equity self-study survey in the January, there were 2 parts, right? The first part, which was on governance and culture and climate, and then part 2, which was on leadership preparation. We got great responses on the governance and culture and climate, which is one of the reasons that that's where the EC started. We had fewer responses when it came to the leadership preparation, and we recognized that that was because that was a complex survey that, asked for, demographics and, faculty and students, and there were just a lot of moving parts in that survey. So we've decided to keep that survey open. So if if your organization, if your program didn't submit their feedback on the part 2 part of that survey, we're going to keep that open from now until through the summer. And we can send you again the links for that, as well as the different data that survey is asking about. But if we could have more robust data, then we could start moving in the leadership preparation part of the equity self-study. So it would be great if you're not sure whether or not you did, we can talk about that afterwards. But I think it's really important. I think it's been one of the challenges for the leadership preparation part of the equity self-study, but that's a really important part of understanding the work that's happening at the program level in terms of issues of equity.
Thank you. We have a couple of comments in the chat bar. One about the membership institution page. I don't know if you want to comment on that, since that is pertinent to everybody here.
Yeah, no, I think Ruth is working on that. Yeah, so I'll just let that get handled. And then if anything comes up in the chat bar, if not, we will follow up because we'll send a communication out after this. So we'll just include that as well if there continues to be a problem.
Thank you, Melissa, for noting that. And thank you, Kyle, as well, for your invitation to work with clinical faculty in that notation.
Great. Thank you, Kyle. We'll be in touch.
Yeah. So for UCEA revision, notice the revision. I think that's the most active part of it. It would normally be vision, but ours is revisiting, rethinking, recapturing. And for the next page, so the EC is excited to show you the version that we've generated. But we're really especially excited to see what your input will be and to eventually arrive at a final version for approval in the future. So we're not asking you to vote on anything today. And our democratic process is such that your views and feedback matter greatly and will be seriously considered and analyzed before the vision statement is finalized. As you can see, our UCEA vision statement contains these sections. As you go into the link, we have mission, vision, aims, values, and our new addition, which is equity. Monica, do you want to speak to the link and the discussion groups and how that will actually work, the logistics of that?
Sure. Ruth, if you can put that link into the chat for everybody, and then that way I will stop sharing in a minute. But yeah, so like Carol said, the EC has done full revisions of the mission vision. We've renamed the goals of UCEA to be aims and have looked again at the values. A lot of the conversation we had around the equity self-study last year really led to this idea that we needed to have an equity statement as an organization. So that's that. I think I'm going to stop sharing. So what we're asking, and we'll divide you up into groups right now. So for you to click on that link and you will find that there are sections of a Google form where we're just asking you to read certain things. And then in your small group, just provide us some feedback. The EC obviously will take that feedback and then continue to work on the vision and have something for you again in the fall. So I think we'll just put you randomly into breakout groups. And we weren't exactly sure how many people are there here. There's 56 people. Someone's gonna have to help me with the math here. So we're gonna have 20 breakout groups. No, 16 is the most we can have. So there you go. Now you know. I think I said 18 here. So basically you will be assigned by group. So if your group's 1 to 6, we want you really focusing on the aims. If your group 7 to 12, we want you to focus on the values. And if your group's 13 to 18, we'll have you focus on the equity statement. We do want everyone to look at the mission and vision. So basically the form is very simple. Go who are the members of your group, and that's optional. And then just read the section and discuss it and offer us some feedback. So we'll have about 20 minutes to do this. We'll give you a quick note. We'll let you know when we're like 3 minutes out so you can finish. And then that will be all you'll have to do for that, for at least for today. But as Carol said, we are really excited about this. It's been, I think, a labor of love from all of us on the executive committee. And so we're hoping that we'll get some additional feedback, clarity of language and all this kinds of stuff so that we can come back to you in September with a more complete draft. So any questions? If not, I will just open up the breakout rooms and send you off. Awesome. All right, off you go.
Monica, I'm hanging back a little bit. My allergies are aflame, so I'm trying to engage as much as I can. I will go over to the room, but I don't know how much good, I can offer. I also wanted to mention that I have not yet, Ruth, received the itinerary for the meeting in August. So just heads up on that.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
Yep.
Irene, you had a question about whether you want to take notes.
Should we just be the note takers?
Sure, if it's easier for people. Yeah, because it'll be the first time they've read it, right? So
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was thinking. Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna move some people. I'm gonna move Pat to room 17. All right. Breakout rooms again. Mhm. Anthony, welcome.
Hi,
Hey,
Yeah.
how are you?
doing well, thank you. How about you?
We are hanging in there. They've just broken up to work on the giving us feedback on the new vision and mission.
Okay.
You should have gotten an email with those documents right before the meeting.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to assign you to a room and then you can just join them.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for my tardiness. I was attending my niece's graduation. So
Oh, perfect reason.
yeah.
Congratulations. All
Thank you.
right, I'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.
That's fine. I think everyone knows what they're doing. I'm gonna not worry about it. But who's not? Juan and DeMarcus, okay. There's another group that only has 2 people in it. No, well. They'll be okay. Oh, no. Yeah, no, everyone's got 3, a minimum of 3. Excellent. So we should give them until 2:20. I'm gonna look at the form, see what they're saying. I'm gonna mute myself. I'm just talking out loud. Start recording again. Carol, you're not on my page. Whoop.
I'm here.
Okay, awesome.
I was just writing in the chat bar that we thought we earned an espresso. Our hard work. There's a way for you to make that happen.
You know, and we can see if we can miraculously put espressos or something in your place. Where's the technology for that?
Yeah, it's called Uber Eats and or one of those other.
You're right. Well, thanks everyone for doing that. Like I said, we will take all those notes and feedback and we'll leave that open for a bit longer if you need to go back and add something. You know, we'll take a look at it over the summer and come back to you with something in the fall again. So, Carol, you want me to just do this, Carol? So we're at the end of the 22-23 plenary session, but it's never too soon to start thinking about the 23-24 plenary session. So here are the dates for next year. I think basically, except for the convention, I think it's like the last Friday of the month, if that helps you in your own planning. We'll continue to meet, from 1 to 2:30 in Eastern time. And, we will, we'll follow up with some of the more documents from today and hopefully get that Plenum page working up for you again. We'll put the recording and the slides on that Plenum page as well for everybody. And yeah, I mean, thanks so much for all your work this year. It's been I know it's been a different kind of plenum this year because we've had you working every time we've met. So I appreciate that. And I think on behalf of the EC, I can say that as well. Carol, any final thoughts or anything you want to share?
I just want to echo that I really appreciate how hard this plenum is working, bringing that, muscle to vision. So it's fantastic. And the group I was in made a few suggestions that were really helpful. So I'm excited to see the suggestions across all of the groups. And thank you for your time here. We hope that the end of your semester is winding up and that once the grading's done, you'll have time for adventure.
Right.
Awesome. Then I think we can does anyone want a motion?
It's a motion to adjourn. And actually we can call
Second.
for a motion to adjourn unless we want to hang up all weekend. Yes,
Second.
we heard a second.
Second.
Great. 3rd, 4th, 5th, all the way to 50th. Thanks again so much. Have a great summer. We'll be in touch.
Bye.
See
Bye-bye.
you.
Monica, do you just want us to send you the notes?